The M4 Sherman tank weighed 33 tons. It carried a 75mm gun that could penetrate 88mm of armor at 500 yards. Cost to produce $50,000. Training a crew took 17 weeks, and in the entire European theater, the average Sherman tank destroyed 3.6 enemy vehicles before being knocked out itself. Meanwhile, the Willys Jeep, weighing 2,400 pounds, costing $738, armed with nothing heavier than a .50 caliber machine gun, enabled the destruction of more German forces than most tank battalions. Not through direct combat, through mathematics. Let me show you how a quarter-ton truck with no armor became the deadliest force multiplier in the American arsenal. Here's the brutal mathematics. The U.S. produced 49,234 Sherman tanks during World War II. Total cost, $2.46 billion. These tanks are credited with destroying approximately 8,000 German vehicles. That's $307,500 spent per enemy vehicle destroyed. The U.S. produced 640,000 Jeeps. Total cost, $472 million. But here's what nobody calculates. Every Jeep that carried forward observers for artillery increased kill rates by 400%. A single Jeep with a radio operator could direct fire from an entire battalion of 155mm howitzers. 18 guns, each shell weighing 95 pounds, each battery averaging 11.3 German vehicles destroyed per day when provided with Jeep-based forward observation. The mathematics are undeniable. One $738 Jeep directing artillery killed more enemies in a week than a $50,000 Sherman did in its entire service life. But here's what nobody talks about: the speed mathematics. A Sherman tank's operational speed was 25 miles per hour. Theoretical. In reality, across European terrain, Shermans averaged 8 miles per hour, including stops for refueling and maintenance. Fuel consumption, 1.7 gallons per mile. Range, 100 miles. A Jeep could sustain 60 miles per hour on roads, 35 militars cross-country. Fuel consumption, 0.06 gallons per mile. Range, 300 miles. Here's the devastating reality. Jeeps could complete 3 full reconnaissance circuits in the time a Sherman completed 1 combat patrol. Information gathered per gallon of fuel. Jeeps provided 28 times more battlefield intelligence than tanks. Patton's Third Army had 4,000 Jeeps conducting reconnaissance. They located 67% of all German positions that were subsequently destroyed by artillery or air support. Now, let's talk about operational flexibility. A Sherman required 30 tons of supplies per week. Fuel, 714 gallons. Ammunition, 2,000 pounds. Spare parts, 500 pounds. Food for 5 crew, 140 pounds. A C-47 transport aircraft could deliver 1 Sherman's weekly supplies per flight. That same C-47 could deliver supplies for 40 Jeeps. Each Jeep could operate independently for 5 days. Each could tow a 37mm anti-tank gun that could penetrate the side armor of any German tank at 500 yards. The mathematics compound. 40 Jeeps with anti-tank guns had 40 times the battlefield coverage of 1 Sherman, consumed the same supplies, and could engage from 40 different positions simultaneously. The logistics tell another story. Training a Sherman crew required 17 weeks at Fort Knox. Tank commanders needed 6 months total training. Gunners needed specialized ballistics courses. Driver training included 100 hours of maintenance instruction. Total training cost per Sherman crew, $12,000. Training a Jeep driver took 6 days. Any soldier who could drive a civilian car could operate a Jeep with 1 day's instruction. Maintenance training, 4 hours. The entire 82nd Airborne Division, 14,000 men, could be Jeep qualified in the time it took to train 1 tank battalion of 700 men. Those 14,000 Jeep mobile troops captured more German territory in Market Garden than all Allied tank units combined in the same period. Let's compare combat effectiveness through a different lens. The German 88mm anti-tank gun could destroy a Sherman at 2,000 yards. Frontal penetration was guaranteed at 1,000 yards. Sherman's survival time in direct engagement with an 88, approximately 45 seconds. A Jeep had no armor. Any German weapon could destroy it. But here's the mathematics. A Jeep presenting a target profile of 18 square feet moving at 60 mph had a 0.3% probability of being hit by an 88mm gun. A Sherman presenting 220 square feet moving at 25 mph had an 87% probability of being hit. The Jeep's survival strategy wasn't armor, it was impossible targeting mathematics. Of 640,000 Jeeps produced, 30,000 were destroyed by enemy action. That's 4.7%. Of 49,234 Shermans produced, 23,000 were destroyed. That's 47%. But perhaps the most damning statistic comes from supply line warfare. The Red Ball Express, the massive truck convoy system supplying Allied forces, used 5,600 trucks. But the pathfinders who marked routes, the scouts who found shortcuts, the messengers who coordinated movements, all used Jeeps. When German forces attempted to interdict supply lines, Jeep patrols provided 15-minute warning on average. This warning time allowed convoy rerouting that saved an estimated 100,000 tons of supplies. The mathematics. Those saved supplies could have built 2,000 new Sherman tanks. The Jeeps that saved them cost less than 15 Shermans total. The final, darkest truth comes from German testimonies. SS Panzer Commander Kurt Meyer wrote, "We could handle American tanks. We knew their armor, their tactics. But the Verdammte Jeeps were everywhere. Every Jeep we saw meant artillery was coming. Every Jeep that escaped meant our position was marked." Wehrmacht General Friedrich Dollmann calculated that American artillery, directed by Jeep-based observers, caused 58% of German casualties in Normandy. Tank fire caused 4%. The mathematics were simple. One Jeep with a radio was deadlier than a platoon of Shermans. The math is undeniable. America spent $2.46 billion on Sherman tanks that achieved 8,000 vehicle kills. America spent $472 million on Jeeps, one-fifth the cost, that enabled 160,000 artillery kills through forward observation alone. Add reconnaissance that enabled airstrikes, another 45,000 vehicles. Supply line protection that kept divisions moving. Immeasurable. The final irony? The most produced German tank, the Panzer IV, cost 103,000 Reichsmarks. It was destroyed most often not by the $50,000 Sherman it was designed to fight, but by artillery shells directed by $738 Jeeps it couldn't catch. The Jeep proved that warfare wasn't about armor thickness or gun caliber. It was about being everywhere, seeing everything, and calling in devastating firepower from beyond visual range. The mathematics of modern warfare weren't written in tank duels. They were written by unarmored trucks with radios, transforming every artillery battery into precision weapons, every patrol into intelligence gathering, every mile of movement into tactical advantage.